In the 1990s, The Crystal Maze was one of the best and most beloved game shows on TV. And as you all probably know, I consider it the greatest TV game show of all time. Over the years, many shows have taken inspiration from The Crystal Maze and its unique blend of adventure, puzzle solving, and teamwork. Jungle Run, which debuted in 1999, drew heavily on the adventure and challenge-based format of The Crystal Maze, swapping its themed zones for a treacherous jungle setting and even featuring former Crystal Maze contestant Michael Underwood as host for its final 4 series. There was also Scavengers, a show I have covered previously here on the channel, which is somewhat reminiscent of and likely inspired by The Crystal Maze, but with a sci-fi twist, as contestants dressed as futuristic scavengers competed in a series of challenges to collect salvage while racing against the clock. But in 1994, the BBC launched a brand new kids game show that shared some clear similarities with The Crystal Maze while bringing its own unique spin to the format. That show was Incredible Games. Set inside a futuristic skyscraper, Incredible Games saw teams of young contestants travel between the floors of the building via a talking lift, tackling a series of creative and sometimes bizarre challenges. From swimming in alphabet soup to avoiding getting captured by the mysterious Dark Knight, the show blended puzzle solving, physical tasks, and a surreal sense of humor that made it a truly memorable and distinctive show. In this video, we're taking a look back at Incredible Games, discussing what made it special, some memorable moments, and why it remains a cult favorite among 90s kids game shows. Before we start, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Incredible Games was created by Stephen Leahy, who also developed the game show adaptation of Cluedo, and Andrew O'Connor, who has worked extensively with psychological illusionist Darren Brown on many of his television specials. The format of the show was in essence very simple. Each episode saw a team of 3 children aged between 10 and 13 enter a talking lift in a fictional mammoth skyscraper, where they would be taken to different floors and tasked with completing a series of games or challenges in order to win credits or levels. Credits being the goal of the first series and levels being the goal of the second. In the first series, their goal was to reach 400 or more credits in order to go through the roof and win the big prize. Whereas in the second series, the goal was to get 200 levels or more in order to maximize the amount of time they had left to complete the final game. At its core, a very simple and linear path for a game show, which was important as this show was aimed at children. These shots of the skyscraper from the intro to each episode are actually of Trellick Tower in North Kensington, London, a tower block that has actually featured in a wide variety of movies and TV shows, including an episode of the crime action drama The Professionals and the 2018 Black Mirror interactive film Bandersnatch. And the tower was also used for the cover art of the Gorillaz EP Meanwhile. In order to relive this show, let's now take a look back at each of the 2 series that aired, exploring what made Incredible Games such a memorable part of 90s children's television. Incredible Games broadcast its debut episode on the morning of Sunday, January 30th, 1994 on BBC Two. The talking lift in this first series of the show was played by a very young David Walliams in what appears to be his very first television appearance.
It's Incredible Games, and I am the lift!
There were a total of 7 games available for the players to win credits, most of which were played in every episode and always in a random order, except for the last game. First, we have one of the show's most iconic games, The Dark Knight. To win this game, players had to make it across to the other side of the board without getting caught, but there was a catch. Players had to alternate between advancing forwards and sidestepping left or right, meaning they couldn't just walk straight across and win the game immediately, and instead had to plan their route carefully. The Dark Knight was supposedly blind and could only see the player's previous locations as indicated by a column of light, and not the squares that they were currently standing on. Each player who successfully made it to the green light on the other side would win 20 credits, but get caught by the Dark Knight and they would be banished into the void. They would of course be rescued immediately after the game, however.
Hey, he's got some moan!
Definitely one of the best games on the show, and a game that many remember fondly. And fun fact, the Dark Knight in this first series was actually played by Simon Shelton, who would later go on to portray Tinky Winky in the Teletubbies. Another fun game was Planet Susan, where teams would dress up in spacesuits and have 2 minutes to collect as many pieces of space junk as possible and put them into the giant trash can in the middle. Each object they successfully get in the trash is worth 10 credits, and I think this game looks like a lot of fun to play.
Hey, she's up!
Oh, she's got some suntan lotion. I don't know how that got up there.
In Glowworms, 2 players are blindfolded and are guided around 3 different areas in search of the glowworms, which are worth 10 credits each. The first area is a creepy looking wall of hands, the second is a dirty, slippery, marshy bog, and the third is an eerie, spooky forest. A little reminiscent of Nightmare, this one, with the contestants being blindfolded and guided by a fellow team member. The best room in this was definitely the second one. So many people slipped and fell into the muggy bog.
Come on.
Right.
Oh, he's in.
Like,
Ugh.
come on, forward. Forward.
No. Whoa, dear.
I was just there.
Through the Ear Hole was a rather peculiar game. One team member would enter a room and make some noises using various objects in the room. The other 2 team members would remain in the lift and could only listen to the noises and had to figure out what each one was. Each sound they correctly identified would award them 10 credits. Not a particularly great game to watch, I think, but maybe it was a lot more fun to actually play. There were 2 games that were played inside the lift itself with all 3 players. The first was called Big Ray, where a giant would show the team zoomed in shots of various objects and the team had to guess what each one was for 10 credits. And the other was called Intruder Alert, where the teams would be shown a celebrity walking slowly up to the camera on the monitor in the lift, and if they could guess who it was before they revealed themselves, they would win 30 credits. There were some quite big celebrities who appeared on this game, including world snooker champion Steve Davis, actor David Hasselhoff, Right Said Fred's Richard Fairbrass, astronomer Sir Patrick Moore, and even Mr. Blobby, who then hilariously invaded the lift.
No, get out! Quick! No, what are you gonna do? Oh, no, they're getting Bobby bodied over, he's over!
The final game that was played on every episode of the first series was Alphabet Soup, another iconic game from the show. All 3 players would enter a kitchen and get miniaturized, Honey I Shrunk the Kids style. 2 players would then enter a giant soup bowl where they would have to swim around and grab magnetic letters from the bottom of the pool. These letters would then be handed over to the player on the outside of the bowl who would have to try and spell some words, and they had 2 minutes to make as many words as possible. Now, if the team were already at 200 or more credits, they would need to make 2 words of at least 4 letters to double their score and surpass the 400 credit mark to win. If, however, they were under 200 credits at this stage, they would need to make either 3 4-letter words or 2 5-letter words to triple their score and win. This game certainly looked like great fun and an excellent way to end the show. If the team were successful and their total credits surpassed 400, they would win the game and go through the roof.
I'm gonna take you now through the roof, but we got a prize for you! Yes, we have!
In this first series, the prizes for winning would usually be a day doing something fun. For example, a day at White Hart Lane to meet the players from Tottenham Hotspur, a day at the Royal Marines, a day learning to water ski, and a visit to a chocolate factory to be official chocolate tasters for the day. If the team were unsuccessful in this final game, however, they would be taken down to the booby basement where they would be given a booby prize, which was things like being forced to do the washing up for the day at the BBC canteen, a day at London Zoo cleaning up after the elephants, and for some reason one of these booby prizes was some Julio Iglesias CDs. The first series of incredible games ended with a celebrity special edition of the show, featuring Keith Chegwin, Philippa Forrester, and Roland Rivron. This final episode of the series was broadcast on May 1st, 1994, and a second series was commissioned for the following year. Although Series 2 followed pretty much the same format as the first, there were a few notable changes. Firstly, the lift was now played by a new actor, Gary Parker, whose IMDb page lists this as his only credit, although I'm sure he must have appeared in a few other things around this time period. The lift was also given a name, Sam, and we're told that this stands for Cybernetic Analog Matrix, so surely it would have made more sense to call him Cam? There is one episode in this series where Sam refers to himself as the Systems Analog Matrix, which would make more sense, but anyway, let's not get too caught up in the details. The show also has a very different look and feel and is a huge improvement over the first series. The players were now playing for levels rather than credits, the lift interior was redesigned with a sleeker, more polished appearance, and the various game rooms looked a lot more atmospheric and vibrant. Even the music and sound effects were updated, contributing to a faster paced and more dynamic tone overall. So while the core concept remained the same, these visual and stylistic changes made Incredible Games feel like a very different show in its second outing. Only 2 games from the first series were carried over, the 2 most memorable games of course, Alphabet Soup and The Dark Knight. The rest of the games were all brand new. First, we have radioactive balloons, where balloons filled with slime had to be passed around from one side of the room to the other. But the 2 players in the room couldn't see what they were doing and had to put their hands through gloves in the walls to handle the balloons. The other player stayed behind in a lift to give them guidance on what to do. This is a great idea for a game, and watching this back, it got me thinking that it might have been fun for the Crystal Maze to have had some 2-player games like this. Next, we have the Victorian Schoolmaster, a game in which all 3 players dress up in Victorian school uniforms and must sit in a classroom and answer questions from the ghost school teacher. But there's a catch. They must give the answer to the question they were asked previously and not the one they were just asked. Get 3 questions wrong and the players get gunged. Another new game was Crystal Cave, where there are 2 rooms and players had to build 3 paths across the abyss using stepping stones that had to be passed through holes in the walls. Once the stepping stones were placed, the players had to grab the corresponding icon and place it next to the hatch at the end to escape. Another superb idea for a game. There was another new water-based game as well, in which all 3 players entered a flooded room and had to connect 3 pipes on either side using the connectors floating in the water. Another great game that we saw in 6 of the 10 episodes of Series 2. Before we take a look at the final game, a word on the 2 games that carried over from Series 1. The Dark Knight was identical to the original, only this time if a contestant was captured, they would be sent down to the basement, where the remaining players would have to go and search for them. This would cost the team some levels however, and even more levels if they took more than 30 seconds to find them. Then for Alphabet Soup, there were actually 2 versions of this, one with letters, the same as before, and another with numbers. Maybe we could call this one Mathematics Soup? In this variation, players had to retrieve numbers and put them together to make sums. A good idea this to mix things up a little. And finally, the last new game, which was used as the final game for every episode in this series, The Penthouse. This game was situated on level 200, but if the team hadn't yet reached that total from the previous games, they would be deducted time from the maximum available 3 minutes to complete the game. Inside the penthouse are 4 prize keys, and the players have to search for the boxes that contain these keys, use their tools to unlock them, and then place the keys in the prize panel. For each key they placed, they would win a prize, but to win the grand prize, they would have to place all 4 keys. I think this was a much better way to end the show. In the first series, it felt a little anticlimactic at the end, as they either went through the roof or down to the booby basement. But with this game, there was a real sense of excitement and tension as the team scrambled to find and unlock the prize keys before the time ran out. Even if they didn't manage to get all 4, they still had the chance to walk away with some prizes, making the ending feel much more rewarding. The added challenge of potentially having less time depending on their earlier performance also meant there was a stronger link between the games they'd played previously and the penthouse, reinforcing the idea that every credit they earned mattered. Overall, I feel the penthouse provided a much more satisfying and engaging conclusion to each episode. My overall impression of Incredible Games is that the second series is far superior to the first, and if I were to recommend watching any episodes from the show, I would always suggest watching episodes from the second series. The format felt more refined, the games were more engaging, and the overall presentation was slicker and more polished. It really felt like the show had finally hit its stride, but unfortunately, Incredible Games was not commissioned for any further series, and this marked the end of the show's time on our screen, lasting for a total of 24 episodes. It's a real shame, I think, as with a bit more time, Incredible Games could have evolved into something even bigger. Just look at how popular shows like The Crystal Maze and Fort Boyard were, and it's clear to see that this show could have lasted for as long as those. Nevertheless, for those who grew up watching it, Incredible Games remains a fondly remembered piece of 90s kids TV. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the video and would appreciate it if you could give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to hear your thoughts and memories of this show in the comments below. And as always, if there's something you'd love me to cover in the future, I'm always looking for new ideas and suggestions. Thanks again, and see you in the next one.